Good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Alain Melon. I am the Managing Director for Hewlett-Packard Enterprise in France. And first of all, I want to thank you, the International Economic Forum of the America, for inviting me to this conference to share our thoughts on how to lead responsible and sustainable innovation. But let me quickly introduce Hewlett-Packard Enterprise and present to you the key numbers. So we are a global information technology company that helps organizations to accelerate their digital transformation. And, we are doing that by modernizing the data management from the edge to the cloud. We are doing that with a workforce of 60,000 people around the world, which purpose is to improve the way people live and work. Since 1964, HPE is investing in France. We are present in many areas with a research center focused on Grenoble, for instance, with high-performance computing and artificial intelligence. So long-term investor in France, dedicated to innovation and IT technology. In fact, technology and innovation are key topics to move to stronger and more durable economies. And before introducing our next speaker, I want to share my thoughts and 3 ingredients that for me are key in order to have sustainable innovation. The first one is a commitment of the leadership team. In each organization, you have to set ambitious goals, targets that are measurable against the, let's say, agreed science-based data that are available. That's the first way, and you have to measure it in a transparent way to communicate around it. As soon as you have set the goals, you need to move to the innovation and using a circular economy model, and that's something that is key in order to be able to achieve this responsible innovation. This is the second tool, circular economy. As soon as we have identified the impact, a circular economy model is an industrial system that is able to decouple the growth of the economy with the usage of the goods, and the consumption of the goods. So by design, it is restorative, and it shifts towards the use of renewable energy, aims of the elimination of waste, and also with a superior design of materials and products, using new consumption model, being able to reduce the carbon footprint. So that's clearly something that is not about environment only. That's also, an opportunity to introduce new business models based on consumption, to reduce the usage, not only to work on the offering, but to reduce the way the services are used. And, we see a tremendous opportunity with a lot of companies moving to digital model, moving their business model to this kind of operations in order to be able to deliver this kind of new product. Because, in the approach of the circular economy, the customer use phase constitutes most of the impact in many industries. And this is the case for IT. As such, we need to commit to provide many stuff in this as a service model, so everything as a service, in order to have this circular economy model implemented. This approach promotes producer responsibility because once you are delivering the service, you are committed as a vendor to manage the product life cycle from the very beginning to the end of life, to the recycling part of the product. This leads to improved efficiency. We are able to measure the carbon footprint associated to it, and we are minimizing the energy and material usage by doing so. And then the third topic I want to mention is about the fact that this is not the matter of one company or in one industry. This is a matter of partnership, being able to move all the ecosystem in this movement, in this journey to adopt this kind of model. This is the third success factor. Our customers are in the front of this movement. They are requesting most or more and more activities on this topic. In the last few years, we had a lot of public customers that are now ranking the supplier based on their commitment on this carbon footprint stuff with high eco-label certification such as the TCO1. Okay, so it's really something important for us, and it pushes us to be stronger and better in this ecosystem. To do so, and to be sure that we are pushing all the ecosystem to move in that direction, HPE has decided to open all the patents we have to technologists that are developing low carbon solutions. And so they are able to use our patents royalty-free in order to include that in their solution. So for an information technology company such as HPE, the three key topics or the three key success factors, to move to this sustainable innovation are really simple. Set the targets, move to a circular economy model, and then ensure that all the ecosystem, all the partners are moving the same way. So it's with a great honor that I will introduce Darius Adamczyk. He's the chairman and CEO of Honeywell. Over the last years, Darius has accelerated Honeywell's organic growth. He has expanded the margin of the company, transformed the company into a leading software industrial, and built a high-performance culture. And he also has been awarded around several topics for corporate social responsibility. And that's the key topics we'll discuss in the next panel. So I think it's a privilege for all of us to learn from Darius how to lead responsible and sustainable innovation. Thank you for your attention.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Frank Holder, the COO of JS Held, and I'll be interviewing Darius today. Darius, welcome, and thank you so much for participating in this conference. Honeywell is a top 100 company in the world. It's over 30 billion in revenues, over 100,000 employees, but probably more importantly, it's the forefront of a lot of innovation. And I wanted to start out by asking you to tell us a little bit about Honeywell's history and journey of transformation and innovation through today.
Well, first of all, thank you, Frank, and it's an honor to be part of the conference. Honeywell is a company that's over 100 years old, and it's one that keeps reinventing itself and keeps innovating to become contemporary and current. And we've done that, all the way for 100 years. And I think there's a lot of pain that the pandemic brought to this world, and a lot of bad things that happened. But I think for us, one of the key positives that really happened is it really focused Honeywell on the ability to innovate faster, adjust to the solutions that the world needs now, and really transform, become even more ESG oriented than we have been in the past. And some examples of that are sort of a quick reaction to the pandemic itself and us bringing masks and ventilator sensors and solutions for the aerospace industry to allow passengers to travel in a clean and healthy environment. All these things that we brought to the market to respond to the pandemic. And then now as we're starting to emerge from the pandemic, things like healthy buildings and energy conscious buildings that we've invented to make sure that as people start to travel, start going back to the offices, start living normal lives again, they feel safer, they feel better about being the environment that we're in. I mean, all of that is obviously underpinned by our digital transformation. And when we say digital transformation, not just externally through our Honeywell Connected Enterprise and a lot of the solutions that we bring to our customers, but also internally in terms of being much more contemporary, sophisticated in terms of data architectures, processes, and all underpinned by the common IT infrastructure. So we've used this pandemic period to really transform Honeywell itself and position us much more for the post-pandemic world.
Excellent. Well, before we get into a little bit of the specifics around your sustainability initiatives, I wanted to ask you a little bit about your personal journey, because you've been at GE, at Booz Allen, prior to Metrologic, which was acquired by Honeywell. And you're well known for your analytical rigor and for being successful at helping companies grow. So what has it been like for you at Honeywell?
Well, it's been a great journey at Honeywell. I mean, I've been at Honeywell since 2008. I got acquired by my predecessor, and frankly, I didn't think I would necessarily be in Honeywell 13 years later. So it's been a great journey. Honeywell is a company that prides on innovation, that prides on meritocracy. That's you're sort of judged based on what you achieve, and it's the utmost meritocracy that I've ever seen in any company, and I've worked for many of them. And for me, it's just been an honor and a pleasure to be part of one of the Honeywell employees, 100,000 plus employees that work here, and I've had an opportunity to work across many different business units, whether it be our process automation business, or a lot of our barcode scanning solutions and products business. Served as COO for the company for a year, and then our PMT, which is really our energy business itself. And I think, frankly, one of the more exciting businesses going forward, because I don't think that there's a single business anywhere in the world that can play a bigger role in the energy transformation that's undergoing. So I love being part of Honeywell. I didn't have to stay after we got acquired. I had other opportunities, but really love being part of this team and really being able to be part of this innovation engine, which is Honeywell.
So the next question I was going to ask you has to do with R&D, with your research and development budget. I've heard that you spend over half of it in the ESG space. Is that accurate? And if so, how do you sort of determine where you prioritize that spend?
Yeah, so Frank, that is absolutely correct. We do spend over 50% of our R&D dollars on ESG-oriented solution. And if anything, that number is going to actually go up even more. And frankly, this is indicative of the Honeywell agility. We are very acutely aware of the kinds of solutions, the kind of technologies that the world needs. And frankly, the world, rightly so, is much more focused on sustainability, renewables, and that's where we really flourish. And some of these technologies we have available today, and I would point to an example of that being some of our green fuels portfolio, which is market-leading technologies that we're generating a tremendous amount of interest and wins. In this year, it's been an unprecedented, unheard of year in terms of the number of wins we have in that segment. And then maybe some newer technologies that we're really investing in, such as fuel cells, which will really further unlock the potentials of renewable energy sources by offering economically viable energy storage. So, quantum computing is another sustainable technology because it will unlock the world's ability to do molecular research, pharmaceutical research that much faster. And what's needed more in today's world, particularly as we're still continuing to deal with COVID and its variants. So these are the kinds of things that we're going to continue to invest in, both for the short term that we bring to the world as well as the longer term.
Yeah, I was looking in the different offerings in sustainability. I was struck by sort of what we would consider mainstream ESG products already in the market that maybe 5 or 6 years ago would have been very cutting edge, like batteries, for example. But then you have other things like clean hydrogen, which I think is a relatively new and it's an area that you're making a lot of progress in. Energy storage, which is separate from batteries, even though it sounds similar, right? That's a very much an avant-garde. And then you have something called the Solstice portfolio that I wanted to hear a little bit more about.
Well, Solstice has been, one of those what we call breakthrough initiatives that we have throughout the company, which is what I call growth-changing vectors based on new technologies that we bring to the world. And Solstice is as good an example of that as any. That's a business that essentially has gone from zero to $1 billion in less than 10 years. It's 6-7 years. I mean, that's a pretty fast trajectory from zero to $1 billion in 6 Definitely. And what Solstice is it's basically the the world's most friendly refrigerant molecule, which has less impact on the world than CO2. And I think that that's really important. It's used in all vehicles in Europe. It's used in most vehicles in North America. And it's something that can offer a much more environmentally friendly solutions in terms of refrigerant. And we're also using Solstice in other applications, such as home insulations, propellants, and then we're continuing to expand the applications. It is literally the most advanced, environmentally friendly molecule out there to use for all refrigerant type of applications.
So how do you partner with other firms or other parts of the chain, the supply chain in that sense? So, Solstice is a great product that can be used for the portfolio products in a lot of different applications. How does Honeywell get in front of potential buyers of this product? How does your innovation work? Do you partner with others? What does that ecosystem look like?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I think partnerships are essential. And I'm going to use one example here in a minute, which we just signed in Europe. But as the energy footprint changes, as more of these sustainable, renewable solutions become available, partnerships are essentials. And let me give you a very, very good example that we just recently completed. We just signed a cooperation agreement of a company in Spain called Saker, which we just announced a few weeks ago, which is going to be the very first plastics recycling partnerships in Europe to basically provide RPO as feedstock for a lot to make plastics. We think that has tremendous potential for the world to create reusable plastics, to collect those plastics and really create a circular economy. Saker is a aggregator, collector of a lot of these plastics. We have that technologies that convert these plastics into feedstock to then be reprocessed back into plastic. So it creates a circular flow. What's very unique about our technologies is that our technologies are less selective around really the sortation process of what kind of plastics are actually used. And that's a big differentiator for us. So we signed our first agreement in Europe, and we're looking to sign many, many, many others throughout the world. But that's a great example of two partners coming together to really bring something new into the world. Another great example of this is a partnership that we also announced with United Airlines and Alder Technologies for the biggest SAF deal in the world, which is basically also leveraging our technologies and the technologies that Alder has and using some waste woody materials. And then obviously United Airlines is the customer for SAF. These are the kind of structures, partnerships that I believe are going to have to become commonplace in the world to really transition our economy and energy usage. So you should look for other announcements very, very soon as we progress in this area. And we're on the doorstep of announcing many, many others throughout the world, by the way. So they're not just limited to Europe. We have some in Europe. We're working on North America, Asia Pacific, and I think we're just accelerating. It's only the beginning.
I'm sure I speak for everyone, and we're very excited about this and look forward to hearing about new partnerships. I mean, plastics in particular is an area that is very problematic because it hasn't been getting the degree of attention of some of the other areas when we talk about sustainability. Talk to me about clean hydrogen. What is Honeywell doing? I know it's extremely difficult to transport, and I know there are challenges in the sort of supply chain with that, but what technological innovations do you have in the clean hydrogen area?
Yeah, so obviously hydrogen is going to be a very fast growing source of energy. We see nearly exponential growth, and as you know, there's three different types of hydrogen. Sort of the gray hydrogen that really is produced in a lot of the refining applications today, and we obviously participate in that. Green hydrogen, which is basically conversion of water through a process called electrolysis, and we do have a play in that. And then blue hydrogen, which is essentially taking natural gas, stripping out the hydrogen, and then capturing the CO2 and sequestering the CO2 to make that a viable and clean process. We have obviously a play in all three of those, and there are various projects that have announced. Over 300 projects have been already announced on a global basis. It's in the biggest project ever, actually started up earlier this year in China. And we have technologies that play in all three. In terms of the economics, we think that in the short term, blue hydrogen probably has the best economics and is, to me, the least expensive, which is really conversion of natural gas with carbon sequestration. There was some very strong technologies in that area, and frankly involved in close to 200 projects in the various forms of hydrogen that are formed today to really enable that reality. And what I'm so excited about in Honeywell is that I don't think there's a company in the world today that has a wider range of technologies to really help the world transition from energy sources of the past and less sustainability to more sustainability. And Frank, you just brought up a couple of examples. We talked about plastics recycling. We talked about hydrogen. We talked about viable battery storage in mass. We really make use of things like solar and wind. We talked about carbon sequestration. We have a very, very big play in that area. We announced a project called Wabash Valley, the biggest carbon sequestration project in North America. And then the big one that we also talked about, which is here today, and we have technologies, which is green fuels, whether it's green jet fuel, green diesel. These are technologies that are available today. Just in the last 6 weeks, we literally won 4 new projects in that area, and we're thrilled to have some of these new customers that are really changing, augmenting their energy footprint. So think about refineries configured to really operate much more sustainability and viably in a much more renewable future. And Honeywell, and specifically our UOP division, has so many of those critical technologies to make that transition from the past to the future.
I think it's fantastic, and that was an excellent point on the renewables that are available today. I wanted to transition a little bit to talk about the Conference of Parties in Glasgow, the COP26, and see what your views were, because there was a lot of doom and gloom and a lot of optimism sort of at the same time. And you have a number of scientists saying it's too late, the sky has already fallen, and others saying there's time. What are your takeaways from COP26?
Well, I think it probably isn't everything that everyone expected, and it's probably not as dire as some others point out. The truth is probably usually someplace in the middle. I mean, as we look at some of the outcomes, I think we saw a broader level of commitments across the world with sort of the renewed focus and energy from the United States and its leadership recommitment to sustainability, and as well as some of the big announcements, frankly, from China and India and its commitment to be carbon neutral. I mean, we can debate whether or not the timeframes are aggressive enough, but the fact is these countries also committed to a new energy future, which I thought was a very positive outcome. And frankly, the other thing that I want to pick up on, because I think that this is a very, very important outcome and a very positive one for the world, because there's a lot of discussion about geopolitical conflict and so on. But one of the key positives that really came out of the conference and even prior and after is the cooperation between the China and the U.S. in the area of sustainability and so on. And I think that's an area where both these countries made commitments. I think that there's a lot of opportunities for them to work together to make the world much more sustainable for the future. And I thought that was the initiations of some of those discussions is terrific. It's a step in the right direction in terms of having a greater level of coordination and cooperation to make the planet much more sustainable. So, in my view, yes, maybe it didn't accomplish all of its objectives, but I viewed it as a positive. It's certainly some steps forward were taken.
Thank you very much for that insight. How, just in general, how important is public policy in order to move these sustainability goals forward? Because, I see most of the innovation coming out of the private sector in terms of actual technological innovation. But how important is it to have government subsidies or tax breaks or government investment or cooperation? Like, how do you see that interaction, and how does Honeywell sort of prepare and deal with all of that, in this area?
Yeah, I think, Frank, in short, it is essential, because for some of these technologies that we talked about, not all, but some, you really need some level of government stimulus, whether it's tax breaks, whether it's incentives, whatever form they happen to take, and they may need to take different kinds of forms, for a lot of these technologies to be mainstream, because on pure economics alone, some of them just aren't there versus a hydrocarbon fuel energy footprint. But by the way, that's always happened when you make a transformation. So this isn't unusual, and we shouldn't be surprised for it, because you have to build critical mass, you have to get scale, you have to set up the sort of ecosphere to support that. So this isn't any different than what's happened in history, in that whenever there's a transformation like that, there needs to be a catalyst, primarily from the government, to make that transition. So there's a critical role for governments worldwide to help provide the catalyst, right, stimulus to really drive this conversion. And we're seeing that progress. We're certainly seeing it in the U.S., we're seeing it in Europe, and we're seeing it in a lot of other countries across the world. And that's great to see. And Honeywell is very excited by that.
Excellent. Well, we very much appreciate your participation and your comments. We have just a little bit of time left, so I was going to ask your parting advice to the other businessmen and women here in the audience, and public officials and others that are listening in. Any last words of advice with regards to ESG programs, sustainability for them as they move forward into this new economy?
Yeah, I think we're certainly excited by what's happening in the world. I think we can be definitely part of the solution in terms of, as the world makes this transition to a more renewable and sustainable future. I also think that we have to do this gradually and thoughtfully, because as much as we all want this, and certainly Honeywell does, to be in a much more green, sustainable world, it's probably not going to happen tomorrow or next year. We have to get there thoughtfully, gradually, but we have to make progress every single year. There are no magical solutions which will get us there overnight. I wish there were, but that's just not reality. And Honeywell is ready and willing to do whatever we can to make that journey shorter and faster. But we also have to do it in a thoughtful way, such that it doesn't disrupt and create disruption in the whole world energy infrastructure.
Well, thank you so much, Darius, for your time on behalf of the Paris conference, and everyone have a wonderful day.